Hello, my name is Mark Timlin and I am a GP, and I would like to talk a little bit about schemas and watch out for schemas. I know we've been watching out for COVID-19 as a healthcare worker. Also, I think the messages in terms of physical health do also be careful to watch out for other things like cardiovascular disease and cancer, because there can be so much focus on COVID-19 that we'll forget other things that may be missed. I think the big one as well that's often missed is emotional health and well-being. And at this time, that has become more of a concern. Organisations like Beyond Blue in Australia have noted the increase in demands for mental health services. So all of us, we do have a tendency towards distorted thinking and beliefs that are false. And using a medical term, early maladaptive schemas, or more colloquially, negative schemas, are something that we actually all carry. And typically we'll carry a few of them and we're not aware of them. So what are these schemas, these negative schemas? Well, they're extremely stable, they're enduring, and they're a negative pattern that develops in early childhood and all through childhood and early adolescence. And they shape the way we view the world. Okay, we see the world through our schemas. And they're made up of emotions, thoughts, memories, bodily sensation, and they're distorted beliefs about oneself and others. And they're accepted without question. So they are self-perpetuating. They're also prophetic in some instances. So for example, if somebody has the schema of abandonment, which is a common schema amongst, say, children who've been adopted, there'll be the underlying belief that people who are closest to them will suddenly leave them or suddenly die. Something bad will happen to them. And so for them, they might actually be very traumatized every time their partner, their close relationships even leave. Might be just to go out or to go to work. And what's interesting, sometimes that can actually become prophetic, because then they'll be controlled by that belief and fear, and maybe then overreact and be angry or be too clingy, and that can frustrate the relationship to the point of breaking down, and one day that person can actually get up and leave. So schemas, they don't normally go away unless they're dealt with. And often it does take treatment and professional help as well, especially if they're very powerful and have a strong hold on your life. And like a virus, they do fight for their own survival, and these schemas usually do work well. So why are they bad? I think in terms of the illustration, you could maybe understand that, but really it's because they are associated with mental health issues. There's the association with personality disorders, depression, anxiety, eating disorder, alcohol dependency. So not just mental health, but also affects physical health. And so I would say, in terms of how it affects our life, it affects our relationships. And schemas are generally not good for healthy relationships, and they do actually hurt relationships. So this time of harm, I want to talk a little bit about two schemas that we should be aware of. I'm not going to talk about how to really treat them at this point, but just to be aware of these things, these negative patterns of belief that can actually hurt us and hurt our relationships. The first one is social isolation or alienation, and the second one is vulnerability to harm and illness. So what is this social isolation or alienation? Well, this schema, it refers to the belief that you're isolated from the world, that you're different from other people, and that you are not part of any community. And this belief is usually caused by early childhood experiences where you've kind of felt that you or your family were different to everyone else, that you didn't fit in. Maybe it was you were bullied at school, or you're in an area where your ethnicity was different, and that caused you personal trauma. The second one, vulnerability to harm and illness. This schema refers to the belief that one is always on the verge of experiencing or expecting a major catastrophe. And so that could be a financial one, a natural one, a medical one, a criminal one, and it also then leads to a reaction. So you might actually be excessive in taking precautions, whether it was with your self-protection in your home environment, also with hygiene, maybe overdoing it on the hygiene. At this time I would say continue with that, but just also be aware that these schemas can be activated, and then we actually go above and beyond maybe what would be an appropriate response. And the history of this one, it's usually from an extremely fearful parent who passed on the idea that the world is a very dangerous place. And I think we've also got to be aware that at this point in time with children, as we may be fearful, that we could potentially passing on this schema to them that will affect them for the rest of their lives. So the first thing with these schemas, I just want us to be aware, so have that self-awareness, and to think about our thoughts, to realize that sometimes our thoughts can be harmful to ourselves, so catastrophizing, negative thinkings, and they can be harmful to our relationships, and also they can be passed on to others. So what can we do? Well, I'm not going to talk about that today, but I think it's firstly be self-aware, and then we can always talk to somebody. Make sure you don't talk to someone who actually has the same schemas, because you can actually increase that negative response. But sometimes you will need professional help, and that's available. There's lots of support lines, care lines, so think about that, and there'll be more to follow. Thanks for listening.